Okay, last team that I wanted to mention here as one of the winners of the offseason, in my opinion, and maybe a bit controversial depending on how you look at it. But I'm going to say the Carolina Hurricanes. I think there's no question that they got better up front, even after losing a guy like Niederreiter, because they acquired Max Pacioretty for free from the Vegas Golden Knights, literally for future considerations, because he makes $7 million, and Vegas said, no, we're going to sign the center and Riley Smith for 5 times 3 instead of keeping Max Pacioretty around. So Carolina.
See, you got a point per game rental player. He's only for 1 year at $7 million.
Yep.
For free.
Totally
That's
free.
Usually a first round pick at the trade deadline.
Minimum.
Yeah.
Brandon Hagel, for example, not a point per game player, has never been in his career, and he's young. He's very young and on a good contract. He fetched 2 first round picks and 2 like B-level prospects. So to get Pacioretty for free is an absolute steal.
Not a rental. So it's like,
fair enough.
I'll say it's,
you're buying the years. You're buying the contract.
You're talking apples to apples, but it's like Gallas to Macintosh here.
I get it now. Yeah,
there you go.
That took me a sec. I thought you were talking about computers for a sec, but so it's you know what I mean though. This is incredible value for a player just because Vegas said, you know what? We're okay with losing guys. And like we said earlier, NHL players are catching on to that. And, there's been some rumors floating around that guys don't want to play in Vegas. And no kidding. So that was the one thing they did. They also brought in Ondrej Kase. And Kase was offered the exact same deal from the Maple Leafs, 1 year, $1.5 million. And Kase decided to go to the Carolina Hurricanes. When this player is healthy, he can easily be a top 6 player. I would categorize him as a middle 6 player, though. Offensively minded, can score goals, plays with a bit of an edge, fairly smart, isn't terrible on defense, and an incredibly cheap contract, so I really liked that. The third thing they did was they acquired Brent Burns. Yeah, ever heard of him? Brent Burns, one of the highest paid defensemen in the NHL. Thing is, they got his salary retained by a bit, not quite 50%. I think they got it at 25 or something like that. But essentially for free, just because San Jose wanted to get money off the books. I think it was like a 3rd round pick and a couple guys, nobody notable and nobody signed even. So basically, again, for nothing. And that's Carolina seeking value in the players that they get.
You just got to love when a GM can pick out 2 teams that are in cap hell and expose them and relatively low value going the other way for some big pieces and just kind of working the cap, and I really like that. And it's also, not to get away, we'll come back to Burns here, but there's something to be said about knowing when to walk away from a player too, and they did that in Niederreiter. I don't think they're comfortable with paying him $4 million, and I don't know if I am or not. So it's like, you got to know when to hold them and when to fold them and know when to walk away. And this was certainly a case. And I think that Columbus or Carolina, is certainly a winner here, because I don't think that their top 6 got any worse in losing Niederreiter. Their back end is still one of those back ends we're going to be talking about when it comes to the beginning of the season and our rankings. And this team is still scary to play against. So talk about Brent Burns.
Yeah. So Brent Burns, man, going to Carolina here, coming off a season where I don't know exactly how much he played, but he was relied on heavily in San Jose. I would imagine Burns is going to play top pairing minutes in Carolina, whether he's on the first or second pair here. I would expect him to play, between 18 and 21 minutes a night, roughly. And he's going to be an impact player. And on an offensive-minded team like Carolina, who's going to be at the top of the standings like they have been for the past, half decade, Brent Burns, watch out. Fantasy players here, watch out. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this because, I've got my fantasy shirt on and I won the fantasy league last year, but he's going to be an important fantasy player and you're going to get him relatively late because of his stats last season. So watch out for him. He's going to replace Tony DeAngelo's scoring in Carolina, and I think it's a perfect fit for the team.
Yeah, you pair him up with maybe one of the best defensive defensemen. I'm not saying he's a defensive defenseman, but he plays maybe some of the best defense, as Jacob Slavin. So
that's right.
Yeah, pair those two up together. Let Brent Burns get creative again and be a twinger again, and it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, and here's the final thing I'll say about Carolina, and I guess for this episode in general, the only reason I didn't have Carolina, number one in my off-season winners is because they've still got a bit of work to do. They've still got to sign Martin Necas and Ethan Bear, and I think they've got just over $4 million to do that. And I don't know, like, depending on term, maybe that costs you more than $4 million. Maybe they have to move some money around. What's happening with Jake Gardiner? He missed all last season. He makes about like over $4 million. So there's more work to be done. But as of right now, I think Carolina's had a pretty good offseason, and look for them to be right at the top of the standings again, just like they have been for the last few years.